Kia ora everyone. So I'm really excited to be back and making another video. I want to say a few weeks ago now, I made a video about my childhood writing, and I titled it Primary School Edition because there were various things I wrote over an extended period of time. But today we're actually going to be looking at one story that I wrote in year 6. So I think I was around 11 years old, I want to say. A bit of background. So I think we were only tasked with writing one page, but me being the little overachiever that I was, I decided to write 5 pages or 5 chapters. I'm also going to go ahead and assume that we had to, our location for the story had to be the Gymnastics Centre. I assume. I don't think I would have written a story about the Gymnastics Centre otherwise. But I don't know. It's been a fair few years. So, yeah, essentially I thought how I would structure this video is after each chapter or after each page, I would do a bit of a review, do a bit of commentary after each page. And yes, my writing, I will say, is very messy, but you know, I'm going to be reading the chapters out loud. Anyways, so let us get into it. Chapter 1. Yes, it's Thursday. Do you know what that means? Said Mary. Jeff grunted. Oh, come on. You're not that bad at gymnastics. Yeah, whatever, said Jeff. They had arrived at the gymnastics centre. They went in and took off their shoes, when suddenly Mary noticed something. As they went to do their warm-up, Mary saw a woman who was dancing around with a ribbon. She was doing somersaults and flips. Then, suddenly, Mary's eyes and the woman's eyes met. Mary stared at the woman stared back, winked, and disappeared. Jeff was staring at Mary and said, Are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. Didn't you see that woman? Asked Mary. What woman? Said Jeff. That woman over there, dancing around with a ribbon, said Mary. Jeff put his hand to her forehead. You do feel quite hot. I'm fine, said Mary. By this time, they were at their next activity. It was the trampoline. They lined up. Hello, everyone. My name is Miranda, said the instructor. Mary wasn't listening. She was still wondering why Jeff couldn't see the woman. It was Mary's turn on the trampoline. As Mary was jumping, she saw the woman again. She had realized who the woman was. So yes, this is, it's quite repetitive. A lot of staring going on, which I actually just read this yesterday, and I think that you will see that's a bit of a common theme throughout the story. The other thing that I just wanted to point out as well, I said the word trampoline twice in this first chapter, and I spelt it differently both times. Now, am I looking up how to spell trampoline while I'm looking at this? Yes. I think I said it in my other video, but spelling still isn't my strong suit. But it's the fact that trampoline is listed twice and yet is spelt differently each time, you know, within a couple of sentences. Not too much to comment on this first chapter, but there are some other really fun elements, particularly in chapter 2, if I remember correctly. So, moving on. Chapter 2. Mary hadn't seen the woman as clear when she was doing the warm-up, but the woman was closer this time, so Mary got a good look at her. This woman was very famous. Her name was Cindy. She was an extremely good gymnast. She performed a stunt that she had performed many, many times. It was a beam that was very high in the air, 16 meters. I'll leave my commentary until the end, but just put a pin in that. If Mary could remember, she was doing fine until she tragically fell and died. Mary remembered this moment, and she always will because Cindy was her mother. Dun dun dun. As Mary was thinking, she didn't notice that she was drifting forward. Then she tripped and went headfirst into the foam pit. Everyone was laughing, except for Jeff. He stared at her in the same way that he did at the warm-up. She tried again and did better than anyone else. As she came back into the line, Jeff said, "Okay, now I really think you need to go to the doctors." "Jeff, I saw her again." "Who?" "The woman. Her name's Cindy. I know this because she's my mother," said Mary. "What?" said Jeff. Mary sighed. By the time they had stopped talking, they were at their nexted activity, the beams. "Oh no," said Mary. Okay, so the reason I'm laughing, and like the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that the beam was 16 meters off the ground. So yesterday I was like, you know what? I remember the beam being like somewhat high, but in my head I couldn't really think of approximately how high it would be. So according to Google, typically I think a beam is 1.2 meters off the ground. And for context, I thought, okay, what's approximately 16 meters? And I think that's a bit higher than the Hollywood sign. So yes, I'm not surprised that when she fell off, she tragically died, because that is a very long way to fall. This was definitely one of the funniest elements to me because, I'm assuming that this story is set in the real world, or it's like a Rick and Morty type situation where there's like alternate universes, and this universe is pretty similar to our one, aside from the fact that beams are really, really high off the ground. I don't know. Anyway. I actually don't think there's too much else that I wanted to address in this chapter. The atrocious spelling continues. And sometimes I think it's a confidence thing. The fact that I had to just now look up trampoline and be like, hey, wait, just double checking. I feel like I do that a lot. Not just with spelling, but when it comes to words, I'll use a specific word and I'm like, hold up, am I using that in the correct context? Because there have been times where I'm using a word and I think it means what it means, but it actually doesn't mean what I thought it meant. My reading and writing skills, they are pretty good, but, there are always room for improvement. So, anyway, moving on to chapter 3. It was a disaster. Mary thought beams were her least favourite subject, and remembering her mother falling made her scared. Okay, maybe beams weren't that bad, but considering Mary was a very good gymnast, she had to walk on a beam that was very high in the air, about 10 meters. Mary didn't know what she could do. It was like she was staring at death. Wait, I know. I could just stay in line and pretend I wasn't Mary. Just pretend I was no athlete. She saw Jeff. He was pretty good. He was about to fall off a couple of times, but he stayed on. Mary was up front. "Oh, you're Mary. What are you doing over here? Come with me. I'll take you to the beam. The one that's 10 meters high." "I bet you're pretty excited," said Miranda. And without controlling herself, Mary burst out saying, "Well, you're not me, are you? You don't know what it feels like, knowing your mother died by falling off a beam." The whole group was staring at her. "You'll be fine. Just go up there and give it the best you've got," said Jeff. Mary got up and started walking. Then she started to wobble. So, once again, we have a very tall beam. I do want to say, there's something that actually came into my head as I was reading this is, in my last video, I was talking about, phrases that we should, leave in 2022, things we should kind of stop saying, or at least, consider how these phrases can be potentially problematic or damaging, and I feel like, just get up there, do your best. It's okay. That's fine. You'll be all good. It's giving toxic positivity, I just feel Jeff should have acknowledged Mary's concerns. And given the trauma of what happened to her mother, I'm surprised, that no one is kind of treating Mary with more care and consideration. A bit disrespectful. Anyways, moving on to chapter 4. Chapter 4. Mary was trying as hard as she could to regain balance. She was tilting to the side. Then she screamed at the top of her lungs as she started to fall. Then suddenly, everything became pitch black. Memories flashed through Mary's head. Memories of Mary's family, her big sister, her father, and especially her mother. Memories of Jeff, her best friend. Then her mother appeared again. Then she reached out to Mary. Or Mary reached back. Then said, "Mary, Mary, 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 wake up, it's me, Jeff," said Jeff. Mary opened her eyes. A whole group of people had gathered around her. "Hey, Mary, before you hit the ground, Jeff saved you," said, I think that's meant to say Tom, said Tom. After Tom had said this, Mary saw her mother again. She quickly got up, took Jeff by the arm and said, "Look." Jeff said, "Oh, I see her now." Mary reached out to touch her, and they just went right through. "No, doesn't work." "Dad?" said Mary. Yes. So I will say, there's a lot of Mary said, Jeff said, Jeff said. So once again, certainly quite repetitive. But we're kind of building up to the climax here. We're going to find out what's going on. It's a very thrilling tale, if I do say so myself. Another very creative spelling, Especolly, Especolly. Anyways, moving on to the final chapter. Chapter 5. "Oh, hello," said Mary's dad. "What are you doing here, Dad?" said Mary. "Well, I'm testing out a new bit of technology. With this computer, I can make an image of a person. So I did your mother." Mary, who had questions spinning around in her head, said, "How come only I could see her?" "Well," said Dad, "the technology is so advanced that it can make only one person see it. So I thought that person could be you, Mary." "But why did it stop working?" said Jeff. "Well, it's only new," said Dad. Dad thought it would be best to change the subject because he knew how sad Mary was that her mother had died. He knew he shouldn't have used Mary's mother as the person. "So I saw you fall off that beam, Mary. It looks scary." "Oh, well, look at the time. I have to go now. See you," said Dad. Mary had to go as well because gymnastics had ended. So she got back in line and they all went back on the bus. Mary sat down by Jeff. And then Jeff said, "So, do you like gym?" Mary said, "Don't ask me any questions. It's been a long, hard, and confusing day." So that is my story. A bunch of things I'd like to address in this last chapter. The fact that we have Mary's dad, who is just referred to as Dad. What's his name? We don't know. It's not important. And interestingly enough, so something I was thinking about, I actually did another video where I did a book review of They Both Die at the End. And it's one of those things where I think one of the points I had made is, whenever you're setting up a world with, when you're kind of world building and you set up specific technology, and this is not just a point that I have made, like I've heard other people say it before, and I was like, oh, that's actually a really valid thing to note, especially with when you yourself are creating a story, is that I think sometimes the more you explain things, the more opportunity there is to poke holes in the logic. So I think in a way what I did here was really great. I was like, you know what? We don't need to explain it. It's it's so advanced. And that's it. You don't need to know any more. You just need to know that the technology is advanced. And just immerse yourself in the world that I have created. One thing that I actually didn't register until I'd read it again yesterday, I was like, okay, so only one person can see it. But in the previous chapter, Jeff said, oh, I can see her now. So which one is it? Just a bit of self-criticism, a bit of a plot hole there. Is it just Mary who can see it, or can other people see it as well? Because we know Jeff did. And I can't get over that line. It's like, wow, that looked really scary. Oh, well, I have to go now. Bye. Just another person in Mary's life who is uncomfortable with navigating tricky situations. So, very interesting. Yes, actually, another point I would like, just while I'm talking about that whole technology thing, I personally feel that a film that does a really good job of this is Ruby Sparks. Basically, it's about an author who kind of writes a woman into existence, and she's, you know, a love interest in the film. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure, like, they didn't really go into it how she suddenly appeared, but you know, you just kind of really enjoy the story and get immersed in it. At least that's how I felt anyway. I feel it's a really great film that comments on the complicated nature of relationships, of romantic partnerships. So I feel like my hair, I did a bit of like a test audio thing. I think my hair might have been brushing up against the mic. If so, oh well. Yeah, that is my story. The thing is, credit where credit is due, right? I think one of the things that I thought was really well done was I had a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of each chapter, you know? Mary realized who the woman was. Oh no, she saw the activity as the beams, like what's going to happen? So she's up on the beam and she's starting to wobble. Oh no, like is she in danger? Then it's like suddenly she sees her dad. Oh my gosh, is he intertwined in this whole thing with her mother, this hologram projection thing? And then we just kind of neatly tie up the story right at the end. So honestly, I think in that respect, I did quite well. I definitely have other pieces of writing. Even in the same book, I had another story. So yeah, I don't know whether I should just maybe, if I was about to say, if I have time over the next week and a half, which I definitely think I should, I could even take some photos of stuff because, you know, I'm going to be in Melbourne soon, but I could probably do another one of these videos. Because yeah, I know I have a bunch of writing, especially it would be cool to find something from high school. Because there's definitely a few things, and I think, you know, you can see my writing improving. It's definitely something that I've quite enjoyed, something that I'd like to get back into. Yeah, but I think I have probably been talking long enough, so I hope you enjoyed this video and, you know, hearing my riveting story. And I will see you in the next video, whenever that might be. Okay, bye.